Hello everyone, this is Nicole Perryman doing my sprint review for our Sprint 5 project. The first issue I will be going over, let me pull it up, is 1. I did do this melee bug, and it was just a bug that's melee, so that I won't really go into too much. It was just some buttons that needed remapping. The first one I'd like to go into is, as a player, I'd like to do more damage when I hit the enemy in the head to give me a reason to be more precise. With the completion criteria of when the player hits an enemy in the head, it'll do a critical damage. And if we open the game up from the build file here, we'll go and try showing this. So if we start in the world, if you can see, there's normal 15 damage, but if I hit him in the head, if I can hit him in the head, 30 damage. As you can see, it's twice the amount of the normal damage, so you'll do 30 to the head, and it will kill the target. Another one is, we'll go over these first. So I have, as a player, I'd like to have weapons. Actually, it's these ones. So as a player, I would like to have a heavy weapon that does good damage and feels good, so I can defeat my enemies. I use the same for secondary and primary here. And really, all that I want to look at and get done with these is that every gun for every slot was looked in at and made sure that any damages were changed, any feeling of the gun needed to be changed, and then all the weapons have headshots. If I dig and kind of show it a little more, if I can get in this room, I think there is another gun in here. It might have been taken out, but so all the guns in the world have been looked at. I might be able to actually select a different level. Oh, I might have broken the game. But yeah, so that was all just getting looked at through all the weapons, making sure that they were okay, and changing damages. This one, as a player, I like weapons to have information and pictures so I can see them when I'm using or about to use. All weapons, and the criteria is all weapons have pictures and other information filled out. The pictures is a visual that you'll see. The other information was more on the coding side to make sure that they go into the correct areas. Start a good new game. So as you can see in the bottom left, we have the AR picture. You can see it up here. Trying to see if I can find another engram. A little finicky. I'll have to mark this down. Well, while we find another engram to show off that information, another point I have here is, as a player, I like to my guns to have recoil to make the shoot more interesting, make shooting more interesting. So I have the vertical and horizontal recoil, and then I also have, when hip fire, the gun has bloom. I did make a comment that the bloom is taken out. I did make a bloom, and it just felt bad. It definitely didn't fit the game. The recoil fits it fine. That definitely did not fit it and was a bad way to go. So I scrapped all of it. Another thing, oh, I guess I could show it. So if I won't click, I'll just press left click. As you see, my gun kind of, it has a set up and then a random left and right. I've never actually played these. This map. Oh, you're supposed to go up here, right? So as you can see, like in fighting, it just makes the gunplay a little more interesting. Fix the melee bug. As a player, I like to have a talent tree with meaningful talents so I can customize my character. Some completion criteria was every talent press takes 1 talent point. That used to not take any points away. A widget showing how many talent points are available. I don't have that. We are trying to decide of how to further do that, but a lot going over the talent that are available is one thing, and a redesign. I completely went through, I scrapped almost a third of what we had before. So if I go into the talent tree, as you can see, there is lock, so I can no longer press any of these until you start off. You get 1 point for every level. So if I can find some enemies, we'll go and show you some levels. I don't think these guys have any XP on them, so we'll have to find some normal enemies. We'll just we'll go back to that other level to show off this section, because that has a lot of enemies really quick. And it was main city. Okay, so if we kill, so now that we're level 1, we can go into talent tree and we'll have 1 point. So if we click it, we'll get our first ability. It will give us the progress to go through, and we'll have our ability, and that talent tree marker there will have gotten the lock went away and the new ones move. And I think that was all. As a player, I like to do more damage when I hit. Yeah. So my main goal was to make sure all weapons were looked at, felt nicer. The any damages, I also did the recoil. That was one of the things people said felt bad. You didn't know any recoil indication, so I added that. Really just making sure the weapons felt nice, that they had a recoil that when you hit a head it would do more damage. Just give players nice feedback and nice fun weapons to use in this sprint. So yeah, that was all of my issues. Thank you for.
Hi, my name is Brian Fan, and this is my sprint review for the first milestone. This sprint, I worked on these 3 issues. The first issue is, as a player, I'd like to have more enemies that are more meaningful to fight and defeat. And dependencies are the enemy AI, and the completion criteria is enemies will chase down a player and fight them. Enemies will operate more fluidly and smoothly. Shooting AI will deal damage and be difficult to kite, and enemies will drop ammo to help the player throughout the level, excluding the exploding AI. Okay. Open the build. Here, as you see the AI I have here, shooting AI, shoot and deal a lot of damage, and don't take damage, and they drop ammo. So the melee AI, they drop damage, they drop ammo, and take damage normally. So shooting AI, shoot and deal damage, and as well drop ammo. Over time. May also do damage to me. another issue I had to Sprint was the melee enemy. It was a bug, and the melee enemy can hit from below if they were to walk up. If you were to climb a wall and the enemy sees you. So the expected results were that the enemy should only stand there, and if the player is in range, they'll be able to chase them down. Otherwise, the AI should just be there. So, demonstrate this. Demonstrate this by jumping onto a wall. An enemy will no longer walk up to this wall and be able to hit you from above. Now you have to be in front of them, and they will attack you and damage you. And finally, my last task is the enemy AI bullet. At the start of the sprint and at the end of the last sprint, the enemy bullet for the shooting enemy would not deal any damage, and that was fixed with a simple collision event on the bullet blueprint itself. So as you can see now, the bullet is hitting the player and also dealing damage. And a player can die from them as well. And that was all the issues I worked on the sprint.
Hello, my name is Nandan Jadhav, and I will be doing my sprint review for week 1 of this game balancing class. And before we head into the actual build, I'll quickly go to all my user stories so we don't have to keep tabbing in and out, and it doesn't take away from the game experience. So the main balancing that I did do was in terms of the advanced movement and the basic movement, where the dashes cannot be spammed and the player cannot sprint while moving sideways or back. The reason the dashes were added was because before the player could spam dashes and they would gain a ridiculous amount of momentum, which could be kept on going with the means of the double jump, and we didn't want to have that in the game. And cannot sprint while moving sideways or back, just so you cannot sprint and strafe while shooting at the same time, and also sprinting while moving behind felt very awkward, so we got rid of that. And the next few user stories are audio cues for abilities, movement, and so on. These are audio cues for when the grenade is thrown and when it explodes. Then there's audio cues for when the jetpack and the dashes are used, so the player knows what they're using. There's audio cues for all the basic movement, like walking, sprinting, crouching, jumping, and landing on a platform. So the thing with the basic audio cues for movement, for walking, sprinting, and crouching, I was able to get all the coding done, but the actual sound effects themselves I am not very happy with. So because they just don't mesh well with all the level itself and all the other sound effects we have going. So for the purpose of this video, I'll be showcasing that the audio cue actually plays while walking, sprinting, crouching, but once I have showcased that, I will disable them so it doesn't get in the way of the actual game. And yeah, moving forward, I made a generator objective. The objective itself was a broken generator, and this broken generator had a gate blocking the player from proceeding forward, and that depended on the generator, this specific gate. and the player had to fix the generator, which was an objective. And once the player actually fixes the generator, there's visual feedback for when the generator is fixed, and they can proceed accordingly. We went a bit farther than that and added more blueprints that are related to the actual generator, and we'll keep exploring what we can do with that. But yeah, the last thing I worked on was the level, which I did alongside John, which is the tutorial level, or the beginning of where our game will start. And I did the start of the actual level, and John did more of the tail end. So when we go into the build, I'll be focusing on the areas I worked in, and once that ends, I'll hand it over to John. So yeah, let's head into the build. Okay, start a new game, of course, and we're in. So quickly, before anything happens, the quick narrative is the player wakes up from a cryopod that the player was stuck in, and the player has no memory where they are exactly, and they're trying to figure out what they are and where they are exactly. And yeah, that's the basic narrative we have. I'll quickly showcase all the basic movement sound cues, and then once that's done, we can begin the actual level. So I have sound cues for walking, there's sound cues for when the player runs, and for when the player crouches. There's also audio cues for when the player jumps and lands on the ground. There's a tiny bit of overlap with the moving and the jump right now, it seems, but yeah, that is all the sound effects for now. I'll disable them real quick and we can get started with the level. So the player wakes up from the cryopod, trying to figure out where they are exactly. If the player wants, they can explore more of the level. I've added some HUD or player facing information letting them know of the actual narrative, where they are exactly, stuff like that. But that's all optional. If the player wants, they can skip all of it. It's just small stuff like this. But yeah, moving forward, I've tried not to hand hold the player too much and letting them explore on their own, but shooting vents with guns is something that's a bit specific to this game, and you won't necessarily do it in other games. So, which is why I quickly just let them know you can do that. Store appears to be offline, so I'm gonna have to double jump through this. And yeah, that was the grenade, which made a sound when it was thrown and when it exploded. And yeah, since we're in kind of a hallway area, I'll quickly showcase that you can sprint while only moving forward. The second I try to move out of it and strafe left or right, it stops sprinting. That's something additional that I added. Not only can you not sprint while strafing, you're pressing shift now, you can't sprint, but if you are sprinting and you try to strafe, you immediately leave the sprint animation. Same with moving back, you can't sprint while moving back. So that user story is complete. This gate is different than the one before. But yeah, the main idea is that this entire building is losing power, which is why some of the doors are offline, all the lights are flickering and stuff, and the players essentially trying to make their way out of here. They find the security room, they look at all the facility map, and they find out where they can leave from, which is what they're trying to do. And yeah. Okay, so this is the actual generator, which is broken. So there's visual indicators that it's broken, and it's also missing a battery that the player has to fix. So yeah, I haven't used actual objectives telling the player what to do, but I've used directional pointers which show them where exactly, or not where exactly they can go, but kind of a general direction that they can go towards to find where they can go. And this is the gate that's connected to the generator from before, and we did just find a few batteries so the player can do a little bit of backtracking and fix the generator. As soon as they do, the fans start moving, the lights stop blinking, so there's visual feedback for the generator being fixed. Once that's done, the player can go and leave the level and the actual door gets fixed. So that was what I worked on mainly. The generator, all the sound effects for moving and stuff. Dashing wasn't introduced to the player yet in this level because the main idea was they wake up, they get the basic narrative that they have to leave, and they're introduced to basic combat. But once advanced movement is introduced later, they all also have sound effects, like when the player double jumps and uses the jetpack. There are sound effects for that, and the dashes, they also have sound effects. One last thing I did work on, but I didn't add it to a sprint because it's very menial, is the health bar changing colors based on how much health you have. But that's something very basic, so that shouldn't be included in like a user story, but I thought I'd include it in the actual sprint review. And this is where John's level begins, so I will be handing this off to him next. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Gabriel, and today I will be showcasing what I did for the sprint review. First, I'm going to open the project from the depot. I worked on a level. Actually, it's 3 levels that were used as prototype levels, and I refixed them since it was one of my things was to rework levels to include the level transition, breadcrumbs, and to fit the aesthetic vision. I reworked certain aspects such as the skybox and lighting so that they all matched. I did not add a train at the end of the level since we changed a little bit the vision and ended up going with a space station sort of that culminates in a ruined city that's been destroyed by some asteroids that have fallen in, and the player leaves in a spaceship from a hangar. I'm gonna showcase the thing, but first, the level transition that I used I'm still gonna do this one, but I did another one since I wanted to make it as seamless as possible, and then the train system did not fit the space station sort of aspect, but it's gonna go in the in the spaceship at the which is gonna be our last level. So I'm gonna start, which is I worked on the main city, the subway, and the last city. The main city was Dekoa Perryman's prototype 2. The subway was Nandan Jadav's prototype 2, and the last city was Brian Fan's prototype 2. The player goes up a main set of an elevator and is greeted by a door that I placed conveniently to block the player from just leaving out. Player is then going to another door and is greeted by some enemies. Since this is sort of the middle level, the player has to be already accustomed to fighting enemies. The doors can only be accessed by the player, but the enemies can them. There's some shooting enemies all the way over there. The player needs to be able to kill them, because if they die, there's a checkpoint I set up here. The enemies drop ammo, so you can kill them. And they will drop ammo for the player. Player can level up. Player then progresses level and grabs ammo. A player then walks over here and the platform falls down, dropping them into the next part of the level. A player then sees a door in the distance, and they seem to have to jump to it. After the player jumps it, they see another elevator. They once go up to see some sort of ruined office building, just computers and shelves. The player then takes another elevator, but this one it takes them to the ceiling. The ceiling, there's some enemies waiting for the player, so he has to shoot at them and kill them. Player is then tasked with jumping across the buildings to the next one where the enemies are. Sort of the breadcrumbs of this are just the enemies, since enemies are normally associated with the next sections of the level. After the player defeats the enemies, he sees some sort of door in the background. The player then walks over to the door and sees another elevator. This elevator takes them down to the first one of my level transitions. The player then walks over here and is greeted by some sort of door, but once they walk in, they will notice that they're in a completely different area. One of the bugs this transition has is that the gun does not transition with the player, but it's still there, so the player only has to aim back and they already grab it. And it takes a little bit of the performance out of the level. Player then makes his way through a abandoned subway station with more enemies, which was used to connect the different cities in the space station. Player sees more enemies and starts shooting at them while making their way adventuring, figuring out everything. Player then is introduced to a new type of enemy, a terrorist. Even though the players already met him before, this shirts do pack a more of a punch and punish the player more for not being in a good position. The player then makes his way towards a pit. He's possibly jumping over it. Once the player jumps over it, they will see another a lever. They see that the lever did not activate anything, so they go back here, try to figure out everything, and then they look back and see that there's a hole in the wall, which means that they gotta jump up there. Player then drops down and keeps going up a set of stairs. There are many doors here. Some hide resources and guns like this one. Others like this one hold turrets and enemies that can kill the player. The player then is tasked with opening the doors and figuring out which one is the real one. They're introduced to a new room which has more enemies and turrets. After the player defeats the enemies, the next level transition happens, which is to Brian Fan's level. There's another one of my transitions. It's a seamless transition, but it still takes a little bit of performance out of the game. There's currently a bug with this one, since I had to resize the level transition, so it throws a string of text that I had to fix. The player then makes his way through this building, making his way, killing enemies along the way. Not necessary for them to kill them. Once they jumped out of here, they started noticing a lot of asteroids and carts trying to pull the debris out of the way, but it seems like something was abandoned here. The player then makes his way through some destroyed asteroids field, and they see some sort of object. They try to move over here. They figure it out. It's like the hangar, which is supposed to be this area, is blocked. So they see this object over here on the right. Maybe interacting with it will cause something. So they start analyzing the object. Which attracts a lot of attention to the enemy. Player then kills the enemies while finishing analyzing the object. So you can see the object is analyzed by just standing on the platform with it. After it's finished analyzing, the player makes his way over here and sees that the door is now open, with a ship ready to leave for the next level. This is where this level concludes, and the player is then shown that they can either continue to the next level or back to the main menu. The next level will be the spaceship level.
Hello, my name is John Balawat, and today I'll be going over what I worked on during this sprint for the milestone. So, for the first issue that I want to show off before I load up the game is, as a player, I would like my HUD screen to properly show necessary information and not to have a cluttered screen blocking my view for the game. For the completion criteria for this, it will be the HUD will display its health and shield, the HUD will display abilities and grenades, and the HUD will display the level when the player gains XP. So let's go ahead and open up our project here. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and start our new game. Just really quick, let's move on from this level here. I'm going to try to go as fast as I can. There you go. Alright. So as you can see, the HUD properly shows the player's health and the shield level at the top at that bar, the blue being the shield and the green being the player's health. In the bottom left, it does show the grenade. It does have the cooldown, as well as the ability. And then that icon there, that shows the current weapon that the player has. It will show both the primary, secondary, and heavy weapon. Gain a level here. It does show that we are reloading. see. Gotta find some more. See that our health is updating and it is going down. Come on, this guy's gotta give me some type of XP. Oh. Alright, well, let's try that again. Oh. Are they not giving me XP? Let me see. I guess those enemies don't give out XP. I'll have to say that for the portion of the level that I designed. Let's see if we can move on to... There. So, for this one, it is, as a player, I would like clear artwork displaying where my weapon inventory is to properly show me what is currently in my hand and what's in my inventory. So for this, the completion criteria is that the player inventory will display pictures for all weapons. The player inventory will show weapon information upon hovering them, and player inventory will update and display correct weapons once switched. So far for what I can show during this portion of the level is I completely changed out all of the assets for the inventory. I replaced all of the images to match the similar theme that we have matching with the health. The current weapon we have now is an assault rifle and it does show the information. Once we're ready, once I have some another type of primary weapon here, I can show you the information displayed. Let's move on from this. Let's go on. Get out of this level first. These. Let's get out of here. Oh, I guess I still missed something. Oh yeah. This work. All right. Oh, I guess that's the beginning one. Whoops. There we go. Alright. And this is where we get into the level that I worked on. Just to find a way onto the enemy ship. Alright, so before I show you the weapons that are displayed, let me go over really quick the criteria for my level. I worked on it with Nandan. He worked on that portion, the first portion that we just went through, and I worked on the second portion of our beginning level. So for the completion criteria for this, it's the player, they would need to guide the player to get onto the enemy ship. The player would need to use a space elevator to get up to the ship. The player would need to power the elevator with a generator in order to use it. And enemies will be scattered on the map, and there will be a few hidden chests around. So for this level, I wanted to design it kind of like an open world, so you're free to explore wherever you want with the targeted goal in mind. As you can see here with the landmark poking up over there. So let's go ahead and explore the world. Maybe we can get another primary weapon here. So there are enemies scattered around the map. And there we go. Yeah, really quickly, as you see at the bottom, it does show the player XP being gained. Let's try to take some more of these guys down. he didn't have any XP. There you go. So we're at 50 out of 100 right now. Some more. 75. About to level up. And there we go. So now we got to level 1. And nothing's blocking the screen. Everything's showing. Let's see. I know I do have a weapon hidden over here. So we come up to the first chest. Let's see if it gives us a primary. Oh, give us actually a heavy weapon. And here I designed some more cryopods with a little bit of information. Gives you a little hint about what's going on in the world that the player's in. Let's see if I can get something that goes into my inventory though. Too much damage. Let's see what that is. Oh, perfect. Okay. Let me go ahead and clear out the room here. Alright. So there we go. We'll get back up another level. So, for the first weapon. Oh, great. Guess the button's being hidden by something. That's not supposed to happen. Is it because I'm in a full screen? Let me see. That's weird. Not even the talent tree wants to work. Oh. Or any button. Let me try that again. Let's see if we can try that. No. Guess we gotta start all over again. That's great. Quickly run in here. Alright, and we're back out. So, I'm not exactly sure what's going on here. It seems like some of the buttons do want to work. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there. But, let's move on to the rest of our issues. Let's see. So the next one about the issues is, as a player, I would like my inventory and level to be transferred to different levels once it's loaded to maintain my damage and health. So for the completion criteria for this one, it will be once a player loads into a level, if they had a current weapon, it would load in their hand. Once a player loads into a level, they will load with their last inventory, and once a player loads into a level, they will load with the previous level and XP. So to do this, we gotta get to the end of that level over there, which I will just quickly go around. Like I said, this is a completely open world, so it's up to the player if they want to explore it, but they have their objective ahead of time. So a lot of these buildings are explorable. Go through this tower just to show. So you got some enemy encounters around here, as well as some more hidden chests. Alright. Let's check what kind of gun we're getting out of here. Go. Let's just go ahead and get over over across. So you can see so far our weapons do have images. Alright. So here we are. We get into the objective, which is to make our way to our elevator. And as I said before, the player would need to power it using a generator. So it should give us a message telling us that we need to do that. Let's go ahead and get into this pod over here. If we were to try to use it, it will tell us that we need to turn on the generator and that there is no power. Let's go ahead, move down over here. So underneath to where like the power station would be. Come up to the generator. It says the generator appears to be missing a battery. We got one over here. Pick it up. Place it in. Got the generator on. There's a hidden chest over here as well. And we got another submachine gun. Go ahead and just use this elevator over here, and that'll be the end of my level. Start the elevator, and we start heading up, and this is where it brings us to the next level. Alright. Oh, I guess none of the buttons want to work. Let's see. So passing by that checkpoint, it should have saved the inventory, so it should load it up as soon as I load up this level here. I guess it loaded up the previous save, but we do have our current inventory here. Oh, and now the inventory doesn't want to show. Alright, so I guess I'll go through that. So whenever you want to switch to weapon and you hover over what's in the inventory, it will tell you the name of the weapon, its description, and it'll tell you what level it is, and it'll update the level depending on what level you are when you pick it up. So that'll be all that I worked on for this sprint. Thank you for watching.